I'm from the French Caribbean. I'm from Guadeloupe. I left the Caribbean when I was 7 and went to France, and I lived in France. I arrived at the age of 7 there. And when I got there, I'm saying my activism started very, very young. when I got there, we were put in a school because we were the only black people. We arrived mid-year, so we were put in a school, and we were the only black people in that school. And we had a very racist head teacher, had very low expectation and low aspiration for us. But as a Caribbean person, coming from the Caribbean, I was on the top of my class, so I knew I was a capable student. And in France, they have a system where they make you stay behind if they think that you're not at the right level. So they actually made me, my first year arriving there, I was asked to stay 1 year behind. But all the way through my schooling, it was quite challenging. And in particular last year, where the director of the school, who had very low expectation of us and who didn't really want any black people in his school, were the first to break the barrier. He kept on telling me, well, his aspiration for me was to work in a supermarket, and I had much higher aspiration than that, so I kept on saying to him, well, I want to be a doctor, I want to be a singer, I want to be, but I certainly didn't want to work in a supermarket. But I think his way of doing things made me even more determined to show that I was capable and I would not be defined by other people. And so moving on, when I went to school, I remember when I had my first qualification, which was equivalent to GCSE, which was basically given to me because I didn't work out, I had good grades, so I didn't have to pass the exam, so I was given the qualification. I went to see him and said, I've got my GCSE, so I was really proud of that, so I went back to the school. I did the same when I had my baccalaureate. I went back and actually said, I've got my baccalaureate. And then when I went to university, I really wanted to show him my degree, but by the time that I went there, he had passed away, and I felt really disappointed. But eventually, I continued my schooling, and what I felt is all the way through my education is the challenges that I faced myself, which led me to really have a strong element of activism around education. And so I came to the UK in 2017 and started joining the BSWS Black Southwest Network the first time in 2007, and they invited me because of the work that I was doing with young people in Bristol in higher education and in school to supporting achievement and attainment. So that's how I got with Black Southwest Network.
Annick, you do a lot for closing that gap in attainment. I think you really ought to speak about that because, there's a lot that you do.
I had the chair who showed me to wrap up, so I'll let other people speak, and maybe if you have any questions afterwards, that'd be great.
My apologies, sorry. Maybe Annick is one of my role models that I look up to in this city. But, so my name is Hussein, and I'm just going to talk. So today Safa couldn't be with us, so she's asked me to step in together with Annick, because we kind of come from a similar background. Safa is a Somali woman, a Black African woman from Somalia and Kenya, Kenya national. So I've come into this kind of social activism field since from a young age, being a refugee child growing up here, and there was this, war in Somalia going on, and my mother from a young age, she wore this Somaliland National Action kind of t-shirt, and she was very much involved in political action. And it kind of made me understand that Somalia was divided into four different sections by the colonialists, such as the British, the Italian, the Portuguese, and the French. And to this day, Somalia still has issues, as you can see in the news. And for me, that is kind of what the root kind of activism started for me. And then gradually over the years, I kind of also started to understand feminism and post-colonial feminism, and the fact that African women do so much for the continent by changing things around health inequalities and educational inequalities, and for me, and then it didn't. The Eurocentric feminism I felt it was oppressing me as as a black woman. So I started to look at post-colonial feminists, and so I came in through that journey. And for me, I just want to talk about this black liberation because that's part of, I guess, post-colonialism and that movement. For me, Pan-Africanism, for me, means that the black political and intellectual thoughts and cultural thoughts coming together, shared with a shared history and a common aim and destiny that we all want to kind of achieve. So I think I really welcome this event today, and I hope that I'm associate lecturer here at the University of Bristol. I've done research with the university. I've worked at civic society, and now I work in Home Office, which is quite a very influential post, and I can make a lot of changes. And one of the things that came up recently is we have a big issue around some of the FGM policy, and I can see some people here in the room, and there's such a discourse, and I think those kind of policies are posed on African communities. I think we need to really look into it, and we need to engage with the university. So I'm trying to set up a seminar right now, and hopefully Dr. Folliker will be part of that because she's an important voice of influence as well. But it's about those policies around FGM imposed on African diaspora communities. Criminalizing communities is not the right way to safeguard young people. That's not what's happening in other communities. Why should it happen in African communities? So, it's really about linking up, and also the University of Bristol is really turning into a civic university. And, it's, sorry, I was really quick with someone. And it's really important that we start engaging with university as well as communities directly. So I welcome the young people, and I'd love to meet up with you. And I think this whole Pan-Africanism movement in the university is amazing, and it will hopefully address a lot of issues that are on the grounds and address the barriers. Thank you.
Originally from Ghana, my educational professional background is law, but my work is one of Pan-African community advocacy for global justice.
Okay. Good afternoon, conference. Thank you very much. This is interactive. Wanted to be audience participation. My name is Dravie-John. Originally from Sierra Leone, West Africa. And as you can see, one of the great Pan-Africanists, one of them, Edward Blyden, key people that marshal the idea of Pan-Africanism came from Sierra Leone, Edward Blyden. I am the Vice President for African Voices Forum, and I bring you greetings from AVF, a Bristol-based umbrella network organization for African and Afro-Caribbean organization. Our focus is to advocate, educate, promote, and empower Africans and African Caribbeans to take active part in policies and initiatives that concern them, as well as other organizations that share and support the forum's values, principles, and objectives. I'm just finishing my MSc in a lot of work. When you get in older, it's difficult. I must submit by the end of July my MSc in management. I've done the first ME in management, now is business management. And I have been also, if God help me, been accepted to do my PhD. So I look forward to more discussion.
Going to the meat of the topic, I'll just have to stand up to start from the beginning. Please bear in mind you now have 10 minutes each to tell us how your work affects Pan. 7 minutes each, sorry. 7 minutes each. To tell us how your work contributes and affects Pan-Africanism. I have one question for you, and then we open it up to the audience.
Okay, so as I said earlier, my passion, my personal passion has been around education, and I have focused a lot on that. I mean, my first interaction was, for example, the setting up of the first supplementary school, black supplementary school in Bristol. And the reason it was called Book 2, learning. The reason why we set it up, it was really in terms of addressing the issue of attainment among young people from ethnic minority backgrounds. And for me, it was really interesting because I was a student at the time, and I had a lot of young people. They were very surprised to hear that I was a student. I was going to university, and then I was doing my PhD, and they were really impressed and saying, God, you've done all of that. And for me, it was something that everybody can do, so I couldn't see. They were amazed by this, and for me, I couldn't understand why people were amazed. Why were they amazed? This is something that I didn't think about. I just continued my journey, and that's what I did. So there was something about not having the belief that you could do it. And through the supplementary school, what we did, a group of us, a lot of us were still students, was to deliver some specific classes, but also expose the students to a range of activities, not only in terms of academic activity, but cultural activities as well, about African culture. And we also took them to trips in France as well, to look at different kind of setup with different group of people as well. I continue this kind of work at university, and university I was a lecturer, and one of the things that I was keen on challenging was really the kind of segregation in students. So students were often, what I noticed is students, black students will be in one group, and the white students will be in different groups. And even in terms of working in the classroom, the same would happen as well. And my key approach was actually how can we ensure better mixture among the students, but also understanding that sometimes students want to be together and they don't necessarily want to mix. But what I started doing is also challenging the university in terms of what they were doing while students were facing challenges. And the challenge was sent back at me, so what would you do? And so at that time I started working with other colleagues in terms of supporting students and developing programs to support students academically. And also looking at how to increase participation of black students in university. So I set up a program called Schools Link, which was actually, the model was spread out quite a lot in the rest of the UK, and the whole point was actually working with undergraduates from the university, BME black undergraduates from the university, train them to actually work with young people in schools. That's the kind of thing that you were talking about earlier. So we would offer training, we would offer mentoring, but also tutoring as well. And part of the tutoring was actually looking at making them understand of the range of subjects at university. And I think the panel, the young people panel, the students panel earlier highlighted in terms of the opportunity to look at the range of the diversity of professions. But young people, very often, they only know what they are exposed to. So part of our training, our work with young people was to give them training to expose them to the range of subject at university. I mean, for example, you have 67 subjects, they only could think about 11 at a time. So, for them to actually know there's a range of subjects that they could study, and give them the opportunity to come to university and experience that. And those who are struggling academically would have a BME mentor to support them academically. And we started looking also at diversifying the industry as well. So underrepresentation of black people in teaching, underrepresentation of black people in the media. I was doing it from the point of view, I was, at the time, by then I was director of YP participation for my faculty, and I was looking at the subject, I was looking at the representation of students there, and the lack of representation led me to actually develop these programs. And what was very interesting is that we work a lot with young people year 10, but the benefit was not only for the year 10 students, but actually incredibly increased the employability skills of our undergraduate students. And that really helped them in order to actually, one, understand the industry they were going in, but also creating some network and meeting the industry themselves. Some of them actually ended up working in the places, because one of our programs, the profession-focused program, what we did, we enabled the students to spend, the year 10 students to spend a week in that industry. So we work with a range of industries and a range of schools. And our students would be mentored for them, but at the same time they would create a network for them, an opportunity to actually work in that environment. So some of them ended up working for the BBC and through their work supporting the young people. my work people became aware of my work, and Black Southwest Network at the time, that was in 2010, I believe. I was invited by the person who was in charge of Black Southwest Network then, and because of talking about the changes we can make in terms of supporting young people. And 2 years ago, I joined the Black Southwest Network as a chair. And the Black Southwest Network for me is actually, I hesitated at first because I'm doing a lot of volunteering, as Moestak said. But for me, Black Southwest Network is an organization that is really important because it's really looking at the situation of BME people in the Southwest, looking at the economic situation of BME individual, the voices, whether they have a voice when their policy are being discussed and implemented. So we offer a range of consultation, workshop with communities, and whenever there is a new implementation, new law, we offer some kind of discussion around that. At the moment, one of our key focuses is looking at economic development. So we're looking at setting up a hub which will enable young BME entrepreneurs to have support financially, in training, and different ways to actually develop a greater number of Black entrepreneurship in Bristol. So, any questions?
So I've got so much to talk about, but in 7 minutes, there's a lot of things I do, but I just want to, mold it up short. And I want to leave an impact, especially with young students and young people who are the future. You are the future. And it's for me, my better half, he always tells me, I'm a mother of 5, by the way, so you can imagine I've got my hands full. He always says to me, I sit on the education steering group, for example, together with Dr. Annick, and what we look at is sort of like trying to close that attainment gap and looking at inequalities in education. And that is all volunteering. We sit on, there's many people looking at involved in a lot of things in the city and volunteering, but it's about one thing I want to really leave with, with you guys is the importance of networking. It's so important building that network up. It's helped me, in so many different sense, but I just want to talk about sort of like mobilization. I think that's a really important aspect, and I think also for the FACE 2018, and I've pestered Dr. Foluke, she knows, for so long to be a chair for an organization or one of the board members for my organization. Yeah, you've taken her, but yeah, I've tested her for so long. So I set up an organization, which I had to put on hold because this position, the job that I'm in now, came about, and I think it's far more important, tackling the extremism and the rise of mainstream far right and right wing and ISIS-inspired extremism and all that. But the Creating Life Chances was an organization really close to my heart, and it started from actually a university project here at the university when I worked on looking at sort of like social and economic inequalities within sort of like marginalized communities. And I won't say just BME because we have a lot of white marginalized communities as well. And it was looking around, and I actually won a fellowship with a financial think tank, a government think tank in London, to develop sort of like a financial innovation. And it was about providing literacy skills and just that whole navigation system for young people, marginalized communities as young as primary school, reception, teaching them about financial literacy. No one told me I had to look after my credit check when had I known, I would have been like owning a couple of houses by now. But it's just kind of those kind of things. It's important that young people are aware so that they come into the space that they have a fair chance as well in life. The deputy mayor, the Lord Mayor is here, so one of my bosses, but the deputy mayor, Ashley Craig, has set up a program called Stepping Up, which is I'm part of the Black and Ethnic Minority Working Group in the council. Again, there's within your work settings, you can set up working groups, you can set up forums where you have the similar views and similar, you haven't achieved. And I think that's also a bit of Pan-Afrikanism. You have a destiny and an aim and a goal. So you can set up within your organizations where you work forums, and one of the ones I sit on within the local government is the Black and Ethnic Minority Working Group. And we unpick and look at things that affect Black and ethnic minority staff within the local authority and inequalities, and we address them, and we then highlight that with the city leaders, such as the mayor, the deputy mayor. And from that, Ashley Craig, the deputy mayor, set up something called the Stepping Up program. So there's a lack of BME staff at senior leadership within the local authority. So actually, within and across all, I guess, institutions or all organisations, that is a problem. So what you can do is you can set up, scrutinising forums or boards that you can hold, sort of like your, director of the university or the principal, vice chancellor. You can all get them to highlight what the issues are and what needs to be done. And the Stepping Up programme allows staff, BME staff, to go into corporate settings and learn skills and pick up skills in leadership that they wouldn't necessarily, because within no one really gets a job based on meritocracy here. So we all know that. So it's based, it's about who you know and what you've done and the skills that you have. So if the council could have, the deputy mayor provided a Stepping Up program for staff in the local government to gain those skills so that they can say in their interview or on their CV, I have done this and I have done that, because that's why there's no BME staff in senior leadership. They lack those skills. They didn't have a chance to have those. So that's one thing I wanted to leave with you. And then,
On the Stepping Up program, actually, it's a cross-institution thing. So that's the way we're talking about working with other students, other universities is really important, because the Stepping Up program is working with various organisations within Bristol, including the university, to actually support people into leadership and management. So working together with other people, with other industries is really important. So you working with other students is really important stuff.
Yes, thank you. And then one more thing that I wanted to touch on is basically this Life Chances project. And Dr. Yose, yes. When I did the project, there was no program. And we had so many people that said, we don't want to go to university, it doesn't speak to us, we want to have courses like that. So I'll definitely share that with people that I've worked with years ago. So it is fantastic that that program is available now at the university, because what we will find is that there will be a lot of interest within communities. But co-production, co-produced research, and the model co-production is so important. It's about, creating new knowledge, and that is really, like, for me as African woman, knowledge out there doesn't speak to me. The fact that co-production research allows academics not to use the traditional research methods where somebody has preconceived and kind of like biased views, but you come in with an approach of, I need to learn from you, let's learn together, let's create something together. And that has developed so many amazing things in this city, and the University of Bristol is in lead in co-production across nationally in the whole, when it comes to research in the whole of the country. The University of Bristol is in the lead, so take advantage of that, I would say, as well. And that's something we can add to the Pan-Africanism. We can look into how do we create new knowledge together, and we can take leadership in that. I think it's a really good opportunity. And that's what I want to leave with. Thank you.
Thank you.
And I end on that, because it was said long ago in the 60s by an African whose ancestors were torn from the continent for centuries, and he managed to educate himself in institutions and chose to give his services to ordinary African people fighting with guns in their hands, to liberate themselves. And he says, we have the duty, we have the challenge, we have the mission, even for the sake of Africa, of Europeans, not to develop Africa in such a way that it will be presenting to Europeans a caricature European image of Africa. The Africa we must develop, it should be the Africa that stands in amongst world civilizations with something distinctly African. And that is the task facing us. Walter Rodney says, to do this, we have to see institutions of this nature as battlegrounds and learn as Africans the art and science of studying here, working here, and taking from here, not everything, but what is useful to arm our people for their own self-emancipation and the building of a better world. Thank you.
been set high. Anyway, I want to thank Dr. Bulake at the MBC and the organizing committee for inviting me to this launching event, FACE 2018. Oshe, thank you. My focus is on the thoughts, aspirations, and challenges of people of African descent. I observe that amongst the aims and vision of FACE is to one, establish and strengthen Pan-African staff and student links within the university, Bristol nationally and internationally, across research and education initiatives. Two, establish links with the Black community in the city of Bristol and Pan-African network. Three, encouraging and supporting Pan-African cooperation, innovation, and enterprise. What is Pan-Africanism? It is the idea that people of African descent will have common interests and should unify. Historically, Pan-Africanism has often taken the shape of political and cultural movements. There are many varieties of Pan-Africanism. In its narrowest political manifestation, Pan-Africanists envision a unified African nation where all the people of African diaspora can live. In more general terms, Pan-Africanism is the sentiment that people of African descent have a great deal in common, a fact that deserves notice and even celebration. The Pan-Africanist ideas first began to circulate in the mid-19th century in the United States, led by Africans from the Western Hemisphere. The most important early Pan-Africanists were Martin Delena and Alexander Crumen, both African-American, and Edward Blyden, a West African from Sierra Leone. Those early voices of Pan-Africanism emphasize the commonalities between Africans and the Black people in the United States. Delany believed that Black people could not prosper along white, advocates the idea that Pan-African American should separate from the United States and establish their own nation. Why? What Crumen and Blyden, both contemporaries of Delany, thought that Africa was the best place that the new nation should be. Motivated by Christian missionary zeal, the two believed that Africans in the New World should return to their homelands and convert and civilize inhabitants. Although the idea of Delany and Crumen and Blyden were important, the true father of modern Pan-Africanism was the influential thinker W.E.B. Du Bois. Throughout his long career, Bois was a consistent advocate for the study of African history and culture. Devoir. Thank you. Devoir. Thank you very much. That's a French. Merci beaucoup. Among the most important African Pan-Africanist thinker of the first decade of the 20th century was a Jamaican-born Black nationalist, Marcus Garvey. In the year after First World War, Garvey championed the cause of African independence, emphasizing the positive attributes of Black people's collective past. His organization, the Universal Legal Improvement Association, hosted millions of members, envisioning and then making plans for the return back to Africa. Garvey's Black Star Line, a shipping company established in part to transport Black to Africa as well as to facilitate global Black commerce. It was not successful. Therefore, I will sing this song. Back to your roots, Africans. Back to your roots, Africans. Know where you going, check where you come from. Leave no stone unturned, tell out the history. Fellow Africans, I tell you the story. Open your ears, 2018 is a year. Koju makoju, agidi bojo. Naso we done dey, afoduna we dey eat. So those are key things we must look. Great people came after Pan-Africanists. People like John Patton, both of whom came from Trinidad, J.L. James and Patmore. Then in the 1930s, until his death in 1959, Patmore was one of the leading theorists of Pan-Africanism. And this Other people came after Jomo Kenyatta, and of course the great lady, Amy Cassidy, from Annick. In the late 1940s, the merci beaucoup. In the late 1940s, the African-American intellectual leadership of the movement had receded, with Africa now taking the lead. That was due in part of the leftist or communist sympathies of many Pan-Africanists. Of course, there came in Kwame Nkrumah of Ghana, the most important figure of this period, who believed that the European colonial rule of Africa could be extinguished if Africa could unite politically and economically. Nkrumah went on to lead the movement for independence in Ghana, which came to fruition in 1957. These were great times. Now, why? Why Africa is the third world economic continent with numerous challenges ranging from underdeveloped infrastructure, poor health sector, lack of established education, continued civil wars, among others. Most developed countries like Europe, United States, and Asia countries have been offering funds to Africa for numerous reasons. These funds are distributed among African countries regarding grants, foreign aid, and charity. Most grants are issued for collaborative projects and capacity building work. The World Bank, IMF, and other humanitarian agencies like the United Nations, UNHCR, donor agencies, and NGOs are on the front line in offering funds. And of course, why are we poor still begging our bread? They bring all this to us, and Africa have all this. That's why I said in my song, I will repeat it again, and I want you to learn these words, okay? Back to your roots, no. Oh, Africans, stand up and fight. Africans, what is independent? Oh, Africans, continue the struggle for the liberation of our continent. IMF conditionalities. What does it mean to the common man? Even you, the elite. Tell me, Mr. Businessman. Oh, Africans, stand up and fight. Africans, what is independent? Oh, Africans, continue the struggle for the liberation of our continent. All the minerals, we have them in our land. My resources not to talk about. Why are we poor still begging our bread? African people, enough is enough. So, and these are all the challenges that we have been facing. And of course, UNESCO decade, which means United Nations Education, Scientific and Cultural Organization, have declared for people of African descent, proclaimed by UN General Assembly Resolution 68-237, and to be observed from 2015, which is already, we have remaining 6 years to 2024, provides a solid framework for the United Nations, member states, civil society, and all other relevant actors to join together with people of African descent and take effective measures for people of African descent in the spirit of recognition, justice, and development. The decade is an operational platform conducive to encourage states to implement appropriate policies to reduce injustice, racism, and discrimination against people of African descent, and to promote cultural diversity by valuing, in particular, the common cultural legacies that emerge from the interaction provoked by the history. And finally, how do we go about? We in Bristol. Bristol have made a lot of strike. Politics and representation. In terms of recognition, Bristol is leading the UK. Elect its own first black mayor, Mawuli. Elect its own first black Lord Mayor of Bristol, Cleo Lake, who I'm very proud of. We've worked together. She is my next door neighbor, and we've come a long way. So, who is involved? There are a lot of people. The African Voices, GAP, Right Direction, Somali Blankly, Malcolm X, etc. What should be the preferred model to adopt? Bristol City should use the decade to recognize, commemorate, and raise public awareness around Bristol's key role in the transatlantic enslavement and trafficking of Africans and the continuing impact of this in particular and of the British Empire legacy more generally in Bristol, British society and the world. Can we do it together? Are we prepared to do it? There is so much that we can. So at the end of the day, we will be able to focus on the education and culture, gain the recognition, development, and of course, the established initiative aligned to the decade. I thank you.
We have time to delve into the different fields, but I have one question for you, then we open up to crowd questions. Based on all you've said about Pan-Africanism in the UK, we all know that the United States have historically black colleges. Every women faculty is black. Do you think that if colleges like that existed in the UK, it would benefit or support the Pan-African voice? We have 5 minutes to answer this, so who wants to take it?
I think it would be a really, really good idea. I know in terms of the Black Historical College in America, how it started was really because of the lack of, black students just didn't have access to higher education over there. And now, today, I mean, a lot of these universities are still seen as second class as well. So there's stigma attached to it, and I think that's one of the biggest barrier that we have here. I actually think it's a really good idea, and I would like to see even a school for black students as well, because I think it starts much younger than higher education. In terms of this happening, I think we really have to work with people perception, because we're talking about the economics earlier, and it is a real issue in terms of setting up a school, setting up a university, and all the different things that go with it. But actually, there's now a lot more freedom for universities. There's more freedom to actually set up independent university. The key thing would be to change people's mindset in terms of stigmatizing what it means to be in an all-black college. I think there's a challenge here.
I think the law doesn't allow it anyway, because equality law that would be legal here. But yeah, I think it would be very positive to have sort of like a college where that is very appealing to black students, so that it can close that attainment gap. I think that is very positive. In America, they do allow. We had a discussion about this earlier, didn't we?
Yeah. Well, you see, I think that we have the possibilities to develop our own African educational institutions. I worked some time ago with the late Berry Grant, around the concept of Pan-African University of the Diaspora. Now, the point is this: if we are not prepared to start from our own communities, the way that historically black universities started, all universities across the world started from somebody's front room, right? And developed over time, particularly through research that solved people's problems, and therefore raised the prestige of these institutions. Now, we've had many opportunities that we don't use, largely because of, in my view, our Eurocentric gaze, right? Because, and some of that, for some very good reasons, have been repeated here. For example, to publish an academic work, you have to publish it in a good journal, which means a European controlled journal, according to their terms, and with their specifications. Most of these things don't get read by us, right? Or even by the Europeans. They don't read this kind of thing. But we have to publish in those kinds of journals. My point is, there is nothing. This is what Walter Rodney said about being a guerrilla intellectual, being able to use institutions like this that are actually hostile territory, effectively, so that you build your own. So if FACE were to work effectively, then we should rally around it so that it is our community that has one leg in institutions like this. But through FACE, we should be able to channel resources into our own community, educational initiatives. Then you have the Malcolm X Center, you have, another, is it Kumba they call it? You can start. That is how the historically black university started, from those kind of spaces. But why are you waiting for somebody to approve? You educating yourself on the things that matter to solve problems in your community. So unless we take our gaze off Eurocentrism, where everything we do has to be approved by them, whether it solves problems for us or not, we are not going to get anywhere, right? And that is the challenge of FACE. If we work together with FACE, we will have one foot in here, right? But we should also be able to train people and channel resources to develop our own institutions. And in fact, when people say the law does not allow it, I think law is set in stone, right? Law is made by human beings, and law has developed over time to meet the needs. And sometimes when we as African people raise particularly European constructs of law, it beats my imagination. My brother was talking about law from Benin. I mean, we were and have been architects of law. When at one point in time, Europeans made it legal that Africans were not human beings and we could be, enslaved as chattel, right? We think it took the generosity of Europeans to change that. It took our resistance, right? Our resistance by ourselves right from the continent of Africa until Europeans gradually got the sense that our very resistance proved our humanity. It's the same way, here, why do you have racial equality legislation in this country? You think Europeans woke up one day and removed the signs, no Irish, no dogs, no blacks? It took struggle to put on the statute books law about racial equality. So law is not set in stone, and those who teach law should stop teaching the fetishism of conventional law, whereby law is ordained, given from above by somebody else. Human beings create law, they can change them, and develop them to suit their conditions. We've changed law, and so if law becomes the obstacle in our way, even Martin Luther King, with all his preaching of nonviolence, still talk about having to disobey laws that infringe upon humanity.
And Kofi, unfortunately, one of our major problems. Yes, I will know quickly. I know. It's not just. we have allowed ourselves to be infiltrated, and they infiltrate us and divide us and destroy what we have. Making reference to this MA study in humanities. How did you go about that? Doc, how did you go about that? Was it not resistance? Was it not one of key issues you have to put forward? You have to substantiate. But as you said earlier on, the economics of it. And this is one of our major problems. Sustainability, we Africans, we don't have the means, the economy, the commerce, and of course the trust. We have the knowledge, we are capable of doing things, right? And this is one key focus which ABF also is looking at, which is part of our principles, to advocate, educate, promote, and empower. We need to empower ourselves, we need to motivate ourselves. Why can't we have African history in schools? Why can't we teach languages, different languages, in the community center? Let's start it. Long ago, I started running classes in Yoruba, in Creole, my own language, in what's the Kenyan language? Swahili, right? Which, of course, this was one great thing our colonial people tried to destroy, because they realized if we have that language called Swahili to speak as one language, and then the Kikuyu language from Sierra Leone, which they were using to communicate, they destroy it. That's why they call it, but Sierra Leone resisted a bit. That's why they call it the white man's grave. So these are key things, because we allow ourselves, our own brothers and sisters, they use them to infiltrate, to destroy, right? That's how all these key people, Pan-Africanists, who were the masters, that's how they infiltrate and overthrow them and kill them. So, what are we going to do? Is it time to change? Is it time to use a different strategy? Kofi. What do you think?
Thank you very much. We have to allow for other speakers. If you have any questions for them, please find them after. We have to move on to the next panel. Thank you so much for your time. That was